It's Wednesday night, and we're live from Oakdale, Washington, in the Educated Touch studio. Welcome to Ethics Outside the Box, with your host, Nathan Nordstrom. Special guests include Robin Anderson and you. Here he is, Nathan Nordstrom.
Well, hello once again to everyone out there in Facebook land, as well as all of our friends who will be hitting this on YouTube. We are so happy to have you guys back with us. We are spending another hour talking about ethics. Got a little corrections from the introduction. It's Thursday. Travel on Wednesday went a little awry, so sorry for the delay. But and I am actually in North Dakota instead of at the Oakdale, Washington studios. So the hotel bedroom behind me is not going to change our ethical scenarios at all. Actually, I guess it kind of fits into today's discussion, Robin. So my guest today is Robin Anderson. Robin is one of the premier school instructors in the country in my book, and I'm excited to have her with me. Robin, what's going on in your life? What's good? Where are you at education-wise, and what are you wanting to be doing next?
Well, thanks for having me, Nathan. Well, I am in Baltimore, Maryland, so I'm the program director at the Community College of Baltimore County. So I'm a graduate of that program. I've been a massage therapist for, 12 years now. I'm currently pursuing my master's degree in education at Colorado State University. Almost done, finished a research project, submitting it to journal for review, and I'm looking forward to the end of the semester in May, where my graduates will be excited about entering the workforce. So it's kind of a busy time of year right now for us.
Wonderful. So how many students do you have graduating on a regular basis?
Generally about 10 or so every year. So with community college programs, they tend to be a little bit smaller. So, but I'm starting to see a change with that. So at least hopefully on the positive. So we're working on some new things to try to sort of engage sort of the new age of education. So we'll see how that goes. So with CCBC, we're very progressive when it comes to things like that. So you never know what we're going to do.
New students and new change in youth definitely has an effect on all
Absolutely.
of the school programs, and making sure that you're connecting in a way that the students will be able to follow through, educate. I mean, it's a really interesting dynamic for the new schools to be looking at, as well as the old schools. I remember seeing something a couple of months back from the AMTA regarding the survey of the profession, and they were talking about the differences between massage therapy schools who have been open for I think they said 18 years was the cutoff or something like that, and the dynamic differences between what a younger school has to deal with versus what an older school has to deal with. And it's part of that is the communication, part of that is the presentation, part of that is just being old blood in a community so that you can have some good people who are referring, as well as graduates who are saying, oh, well, this is where I graduated from and where I went to. It's a unique challenge, and it's a lot of fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our standards real quick and make sure that we are understanding what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be going to the National Certification Board of Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork website, which is ncbtmb.org. Down at the very bottom of the page, you'll find Code of Ethics on the left-hand side, and that'll take you to this page right here. And so we are actually all the way down to number 14, which means that we only have a month left for the Code of Ethics, and then we get into the standards of practice, which those discussions are going to be a lot more fun. And I'm pretty sure, Robin, I'm going to have you back one or two times, because there's stuff that really engages me, and I know engages you. So
Okay.
we'll kind of play as we go, but just kind of wanted to follow through and follow up with what today's discussion is about, and that is number 14, refrain under all circumstances from participating in a sexual relationship or sexual contact with a client, whether consensual or otherwise, from the beginning of the client-therapist relationship for the minimum of 6 months after the termination of the client-therapist relationship, unless an ongoing current sexual relationship exists prior to the date of the therapeutic relationship beginning. I love and hate this one. and I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm going to let you start. What is something that you really like about this one?
Well, I will say from what I understand about the whole therapeutic relationship, the time period of the 6 months, that's kind of consistent under a lot of state laws. In our state of Maryland, that is what's required here, is that you have to at least let 6 months of time pass before you engage in any kind of personal relationship. They do bring in the issue of the dual relationship or transference, and making sure that there are no ties. And that's kind of the way I teach it too, when I teach it to students, that look, if you have a prior relationship with someone, sexual or not, you need to delineate what that relationship is when you are the therapist and they are your client. So, and if that can't be made very clear, then you need to follow this rule. So, which is you need to not have any interaction with them for 6 months and then, move on.
So I love having black and white rules, and I hate black and white rules that have a couple of holes in them.
Yeah.
That's like having a boat that has 2 holes drilled right into the bottom of the boat. Mm-hmm. And so that's the 2 pieces that drive me nuts about this one, because I think statistically we want to be able to say, don't have sex with your client, period.
Right.
And that creates that line to say, there's no real exception here. And so when someone says, well, what about if I'm working on my spouse? Well, okay, so then they decided to toss in, unless an ongoing current sexual relationship exists prior to the date of therapeutic relationship beginning. However, I see a null and void here, because in the concept of, are you actually creating a therapist-client relationship, or are you a spouse?
Right. That's what I would say too, is that if you're working on your spouse, they're not really your client. It's just like my husband's an accountant. He's not my accountant. I mean, he does my taxes. Yes, he does my taxes. Of course he does my taxes. I'm a massage therapist and educator. I can't do my taxes.
How much do you pay him to do your taxes?
Right. But it's exactly the same kind of thing. I provide a service to him, but he's my spouse, and he knows that that's my area of expertise. So I don't necessarily think that it's something that needs to be regulated under a code of ethics. However, if I were to get divorced and we no longer have a relationship, but in essence we do, because then there are some other issues going on, you still have to maintain professional boundaries in terms of, I'm operating as your therapist, not as your ex-wife or your wife or whatever, and he accepts me as that person as well. So I agree. I get what you're saying about this particular, the way it's phrased, because, sexual relationship, honestly, I think you ought to take the word sexual out of it, and it really should be any kind of relationship, really. It doesn't matter if it's sexual or not. Either way, you still need to delineate that therapeutic relationship between therapist and client, regardless. So
a professional relationship, period, needs to be maintained. And that's kind of that other piece that I really understand. Now, the other hole that I see in the bottom of this boat is the minimum of 6 months. I understand why they do it. I'm still looking for the research piece and find out where that number came up from. But I don't doubt there's some sort of bell curve where they defined out, okay, so at this point there's definitely a problem with the relationship. At this point there's more separation. At this point there's delineative separation. I don't know where that 6 months lies on that. And so I would love to see the research that was put into effect to create this number.
Well, the only thing I can speak to that is having my school is in a group of, well, my college has a school of health professions, and I have my programs with other health professionals. So it could be, and I can't speculate for sure. I'm not well versed in this, but I do know that with, for example, nurses, doctors, physicians assistants, physical therapists, whatever, they also have codes of ethics with regards to a certain amount of time that has to pass before you can have a personal relationship with someone. Perhaps someone might have gone, or whoever developed the code might have gone off of that. I know that there are some very strict rules with other health professionals with regards to that. So it is possible that's where it came from.
And 6 months and 2 years are the standard that I've seen in other professions.
Yep.
And I don't know where those two numbers came from. That they're both shocking to me. And I don't care what profession the research is in, but I think it would be very insightful for us to have a good quality conversation regarding that research, to say, okay, so here's the reasoning behind, here's the thought process, here's the really numerical value that they had. I mean, if this was one therapist and they then said, okay, so we're going to check in with you once a month and see when you finally feel like you're not connected to them and you're able to have a professional, or is it 1,000 therapists of some sort, or nurses, where they said, okay, here's the separation point. That would intrigue me. That would give me a whole bunch of support for 6 months. I just know what 6 months means to me. 6 months goes by in a blink of an eye.
Well, that's true. That's very true.
And if you keep yourself busy, are you going to be focusing on changing the perception of a relationship? And then that other piece is, if you see that client once a month, they miss 6 appointments. If you see them once a week, they miss a lot more appointments. If you see them once every couple of months or once every 3 months, they've only missed 2 appointments.
Right.
And this concept of changing the therapeutic relationship and being conscious of that, if they only miss 2 appointments, I don't know if your perception of them as a client would have changed in 6 months.
Good point. Good point. I don't know. It's hard to say, but I do think probably just again, from what I understand from working with other professionals, is that 6 months seems to be a reasonable amount of time for a relationship to end, I guess, and for a different one to commence. So while I get what you're saying, that if you only see them once every quarter or once every couple of months, you don't really have much of a therapeutic relationship. However, it's still a relationship, and it's still, a fair amount of time. However, seeing somebody once a week, it's going to be slightly, a bit more of a shocker, I guess, than if it were the other way around. So,
Sure.
I mean, I get that, but I can see where you can make the argument for both cases. And, again, it has to do with, it kind of brings you back to that transference, counter-transference thinking in talking about your example, because clearly a client who sees you on a weekly basis is going to have some more of an attachment to you and you to them. You have a mutual effect on each other than somebody who comes and sees you once a month or once every couple of months. So, and for what reason too? Are they coming to you just because they want to relax, or are they coming to you because you're treating them for a condition to help manage pain, or manage symptoms associated with a condition? There are so many different avenues that play into that. How would that time passage actually be effective or not effective?
I like the concept of, you have a slightly different therapeutic relationship depending on the type of treatment you're giving to your client.
Sure.
I could see that across all different concepts. If you're working with a family in counseling as a counselor and you're doing family counseling, you have a different dynamic than you do if you're one-on-one counseling with another person. I think that as a massage therapist, if you're doing chair massage at a sporting event for someone, you're going to have a different relationship with them than if they're in a motor vehicle accident and you're doing insurance to really kind of help them stabilize from recovery from an injury. It's the dynamic that is there. Now, is that wrong or is that right? I can't say either way. I think it's just different to kind of connect with a person in a different way.
Right.
One of the things that I love about this this policy, this one piece of the Code of Ethics, is the very beginning, and it's that the first 4 or 5 words: refrain under all circumstances from participating in a sexual relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm trying to think of any stronger words that they could have used. I mean, refrain kind of is, okay, separate yourself in all circumstances. I like the word all.
Mm-hmm.
Because this isn't well, I'm going to refrain unless I'm single and they're attractive and we really hit it off, and that's not it.
Yeah. No.
It is when you're coming into the treatment session, you're coming in with focus towards that client and working with that client for their better good therapeutically. You should be shocked when someone asks you out on a date.
Oh, yeah.
You should be uncomfortable when someone is connecting with you in a personal way. It should be, wait a second, that wasn't anywhere close to my mind.
Right.
Because if you're not shocked about it, then you had the thought too.
Oh, I've been shocked, believe me. I've had it happen a few times. So.
Would you like to share any of those examples?
Well, I mean, this kind of goes on topic, but a little off topic. And I'm sure that many therapists, and I'm sad to say that I'm sure many therapists have experienced this. But, I have been, I don't want to use the word victim. That's such a strong word because it really wasn't a victim. But I have experienced sexual misconduct with clients on a couple occasions. One was one that wasn't a one and done type of, session, like first session. One was actually a client that I had seen for a couple of months, for 3 or 4 months. So he was a regular client of mine, he was a executive chef at one of the nicer restaurants in the area. And he came to me literally because, let's face it, as somebody who works in that line of work, they're doing a lot of, hard physical labor. So, getting a massage on a regular basis is a good, self-care thing. Yep. So he did come to me on a regular basis for about 3 or 4 months, had a good therapeutic relationship with him until the one day that he came in. And, I didn't think anything of it because it was just, his usual treatment. But when he came into the room that particular day, I started working on, the leg and the thigh area. And then he said, I'm really tight, up in the groin area. Can you work on that? And I said, well, I don't really sense that, but, I'll give you deeper pressure as I feel I need to, but no worries. And, I made sure the draping was tight and so forth. Yeah. But what was a real kicker for me was when I flipped him prone and started working on the thigh again, he started grinding into the table. And then he said, you don't have to stop there. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And he said, no, you don't have to stop there. And then this was what kind of threw me off the edge. He went and grabbed for me with his arm. He grabbed me right, like, my, butt cheek area. And he's just like, hey, and I said, you need to stop. And he's like, oh, don't be like that. And I said, no, I'm going to be like that. And I said, I think this session's done. And I left the room. And I think he was a little upset, but was more upsetting to me about this wasn't so much that he came on to me as much as the owner of the spa that I worked at and their response, which was, I was very uncomfortable by what happened. When I left the room, I said the massage was done, and I said, you need to just leave. I was not going to escort him up to the front. I was just going to leave, So my manager came back and said to me, you know, if he doesn't pay for his massage, that's on you. And I said, excuse me? I'm like, he just tried to, basically sexually assault me. I mean, he kind of like grabbed at me, made me feel uncomfortable. I'm telling you that I'm very uncomfortable about it. And this is your response. This is how you support me in terms of making me feel like I'm in a safe environment. So, and he did leave without paying. And the manager got mad at me. And of course, that was my last day working at that spa. And I know that, that's not something that's easy to do, that we don't have the luxury of just walking on the job like that, off the job like that, like some, like I did. But in my opinion, I was not comfortable working for someone that was going to allow something like that to happen in their facility. And, as a therapist, you're supposed to support me and trust me. If I feel uncomfortable with a client, then you should know that that's something that you should take effort, and take interest in supporting me. And so I do share this story a lot with my students, because I like to give them the understanding that they need to be empowered with taking back the relationship and keeping it therapeutic. And honestly, I would not have stopped the session until the point where he grabbed at me. At that point, he could have said anything he wanted. I mean, grinding into the table, not that that's appropriate, it's not. But I guess my point is that I could have made it through the session and just been like, you know what, and just refused seeing him. But the worst part for me was when he grabbed me. That's where I had an issue. And that's where I knew we went places that I was not comfortable with. So
there are too many examples that are similar to that.
Yeah.
I recently just heard that the majority of sexual assault sessions on either side by a massage therapist or on a massage, to a massage therapist, are not the first time client.
Wow.
Most of the time it's multiple sessions, a minimum of 3, because what they're doing is they're building up a comfort level with that person. They're building up a relationship so that they can feel like, okay, now I know the person and I know what I think they would like, and so either way, a massage therapist assaulting a client generally isn't going to happen on that first session. Now, you'll probably get freaked out and uncomfortable with someone who's not having good communication, who's not being tight in their drapes, who's not asking for specific guidelines and making sure that draping is, those things are going to kind of give you red flags, but usually inappropriate behavior is going to happen on several after that. With a client, you're going to build a relationship with that client before they feel like they can come in and tell you, hey, you know what, hey, I want you to do this. Rarely is that on the first session. I had a interesting discussion today. I'm at one of the AMTA conventions, and there was a wonderful massage therapist who came up and said, hey, I hear you're the ethics guy. I got a question for you. And so thank her for giving me the right to talk about this story. She had a family that she's seen several times, and the older uncle had been coming in and seeing her, and she had worked on him several times, and she was working on his leg, and he said, hey, I want you to go a little deeper. And she's like, okay, any specific reason or where or what's going on? And he says, well, it's okay, I just want you to work up higher on my thigh. And his continued statements went to well, no, it's okay, it's all right, as he was trying to justify the behavior and convince her that the behavior was okay. And as he said, oh, well, give me your hands, I'll put them where I want. And she's like, no, you show me where you want my hands. And he reached for his crotch. And she says, nope, sorry, session's over. That's it. That's not what we're doing here. And so she's a solo massage therapist in her solo practice. And her first real thought after being really shook up and concerned and all that is, what do I do? How do I document this and make sure that this person doesn't do that to anyone else? And that's a huge challenge in our profession right now.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that, because if you are working by yourself, no one else is going to see those notes. So even if you document it and, you put them on a, no service list or whatever the case may be, it's just you. So there's no way of preventing that person to going someplace else. But, even in the spa that I worked at where that happened, even though I documented it that way, who's to say that he didn't come back and jump on the schedule for another therapist? And how do I know that the spa manager didn't call him back and apologize profusely about my behavior? I mean, there's so many different ways that you could have gone with that. So I know it's difficult, and but I do think, I don't know how, because of with HIPAA laws and HIPAA requirements, you can't really do things like that. Now, you can in your own environment. When another incident where I worked at a different spa, something happened. We did have we did document it, and we did put it in a no scheduling list. So, and that was, well known with all the therapists and the owner that worked there. But yeah, I don't know how you would do that. It's kind of that's a touchy area. Again, something that maybe if as a profession we had some type of standard like reporting system. I know I'm throwing out a can of worms here, but
whoa, hold on.
Yeah, I know. But
So one of the things that when I was talking to her, she said, well, isn't there some place where we could send this data? I heard there's some sort of database. I said, not on that side. Now, I know that there are groups who are working on a database for massage therapists who have been inappropriate. Mm-hmm. The Federation of State Massage Therapy Board has talked about this and having a database for who's had their license removed and that type of thing. Are they going to get there? We don't know. We haven't seen that. But that's something that could really kind of go a long ways for that half. But then I started kind of talking with her and saying, okay, so how do you have people schedule appointments? And she says she uses an online booking system. Mm-hmm. And she has this this button that she can push on scheduling that says, do not allow this person to schedule with me. And I said, do you know if that sets up for just you, or if that sets up for the entire system? Because that system could have a really good marketing ploy to say, hey, we have a list of people who have been inappropriate, and we will not book those people with you. And they have to go through a whole process or whatever they might do to have a person come off that list, but have a succinct statement to say, we have a database of people who have tried to be inappropriate, and we are making sure that they do not see single massage therapists. I think that's the only way that I can think of a system making sure to stabilize it without getting HIPAA involved. But even there's going to be people who are like, well, how come I got on this list? How come I can't get a massage with any massage therapist in the city? Well, because someone said you did this.
Right. Well, it may have to go the wayside of law enforcement, unfortunately. And part of it is because I think you have to classify that kind of behavior as a form of assault, if you really think about it. So in which case, I kind of feel like the state boards could do something to empower law enforcement to maintain a database of such nature. So in which case, then if you report it as, clearly this policemen have much, bigger things to worry about these days. However, the thing is that a lot of these, clients that are performing or doing this type of behavior they're probably connected to other things, too, such as, prostitution and human trafficking and so forth. So kind of feel like that if you maintained, I know that we're trying to stop the human traffickers, but perhaps if you stopped the clients, that may lead you to the bigger fish.
Absolutely. I love the idea of following the bait to the bigger fish, because that really would give the human trafficking some leverage into figuring out where they're going and how they're getting there. I mean, I really feel strongly that it does need to be titled with sexual assault.
Yeah.
Because
well, and in my case, that's exactly what happened. I mean, he grabbed me. So
yeah.
if I had let that go any further, that could have ended very badly. And then what about the therapists that are doing out calls and things like that? There's talk about a danger zone, that you're walking into. And no matter how hard you screen for some of these clients, you're not always going to get them off the phone. And just as you said before about online scheduling, that makes it even harder.
Yep.
I mean, really, it makes it, while it's great from a convenience perspective, believe me, we use it in our student clinic. We use online scheduling. It's a great time saver and it's great for the clients, but it's not as easy to find those difficult, those red flags, so to speak.
How to weed them out.
Yeah.
I had a massage therapist in the spa that I owned in Portland. And I've used this story time and time again. It's one that I think is pretty standard and very similar to yours with some slight twist. She was a young massage therapist. She was probably 19 years old, a sweet, kind young lady, naive in a lot of ways, wore V-neck shirts that were a little too low by my perspective for what a professional would be wearing. And in the spa that I owned, all of the massage therapists were independent contractors. And according to me at that point, when I was looking at what it meant to be an independent contractor, dress code was one of those things that I couldn't define as a contractor of massage therapists. And so I let that kind of go. And she had a late client. She had the last client of the evening. And she had the client come back and went through the whole massage. And at the end of the massage, there's about 5 minutes left at the end of the session. And she says, well, I've noticed we've got 5 minutes left. Is there anything else that you wanted me to focus on? And because she used ambiguous language and he was thinking inappropriate thoughts of some sort, he responded with, what about a hand job? Well, she, being the sweet, naive young lady that she was, she says, well, what's wrong with your hand? Because she thought he meant, oh, spend time on your hands. But you didn't tell me what was going on with your hands, so let's do some intake to figure out what that meant. Well, at that point, he thought she meant do it yourself. And she screamed when he reached for his crotch and ran out of the room.
Mm.
She goes right to the receptionist, and they start documenting everything that happened. Because in my spa, that was the standard. I said, if anything happens, you need to document at that point, because we don't want to have any delay. Well, he got dressed, ran out of the room, threw some money at the window, and left. So the challenge that I had was several different things. First of all, he had been in many times before, and so had his wife. And so we knew more about this person than just this circumstance. The second piece was when she opened up to ambiguous language, he may have thought that she was coming on to him.
Right.
And so this miscommunication that massage therapists have at times of really presenting themselves as professional and stating and communicating in professional ways what you're actually doing is a very important tool to weed out people from a misunderstanding that may be perceived as sexual advance.
Right.
The next morning I got to the office. I was the first one there, and she actually came in early, and so we were sitting there and we were talking, and we had this sweet massage therapist, old as dirt. I mean, she'd been around forever, massaging for an eternity, if not more. And she came walking on in, hey, what's going on? And we're like, oh, well, we had a massage therapist who asked for sexual favors, and she goes, "Oh yeah, it happens all the time." I was like, first of all, gross, but people are asking you for sexual favors? She's like, "Oh yeah, whenever it happens to me, I just say, oh, you're looking for a prostitute. I'm not a prostitute. You came in for your neck pain. And so that's what we're working on. We're working on your neck pain. If you want that, yeah, prostitutes, I don't know where you find those, but that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for a massage. So we're going to give a massage." And she educated, reinformed, and directed.
Yeah.
And she continued to work in a professional manner with that educational aspect of, here's what you're asking for. Here's what I'm going to give. We created this treatment plan for you, and I'm going to hold true to your treatment plan.
Yep.
Just because you asked me for something stupid doesn't mean I'm going to punish you because you don't know that massage therapy isn't prostitution. I'm going to inform you of that, and then I don't expect to ever hear about it again.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Oh yeah, I've kept a lot of clients who have asked for that."
Mm-hmm.
And they come back for professional therapeutic massage because they still get that neck ache once in a while. Mm-hmm. That was so enlightening to me to kind of go, it is about communication. It is about how you present yourself, and it is about making sure that you're not offended,
right,
when you don't know what the full situation is. But simply by saying that we're not prostitutes, some people don't, I hate to say it, in the 21st century, some people don't know we're not.
No, that's true. I mean, it kind of goes back to that whole thing about how we're referred to as masseuses or masseurs. Yep. You know, how that's such a derogatory term. It's funny, in my master's program, I'm actually taking a course on multicultural diversity, and we were talking about, racism and, white privilege and so forth. And they asked us to talk about something, and I told them about how it is very offensive to a massage therapist to call them a masseuse or a masseur. That in today's world, I mean, we go through a lot of education to become therapists. So, and it was really surprising to me. This was a master's level course and 25 students in this course, and every single one of them were like, "Oh, I had no idea. I'm so glad you enlightened us." And I'm like, wow, really? And these are people that range anywhere from 30 years of age to 60 years of age. So, and I get it more from the older end of the spectrum that that's what the terminology was. And a lot of times when people use that terminology, I just politely correct them. But I'm sorry, but anybody under the age of 45 should really know that that's not really the proper term.
I think the problem, though, is that massage therapists, and I've seen this as well, massage therapists, they'll hear the term, and instead of investing the time in correcting the client, they just go, whatever, I don't want to have this discussion. It's not worth it. I'm just going to deal with you calling me a masseuse for right now. But I guess I try and have a slightly humorous addressment to that. So the first one is like, "Oh, you're a really great masseuse." Well, I'm not French. I'm not a woman. So my term would be massage therapist. And whenever you're talking in the States, it would be a massage therapist, a licensed massage therapist specifically.
Right.
And people are like, "What?" I'm like, well, a masseuse is a French term for a female massage therapist. That's not what is appropriate to talk to a massage therapist or call a massage therapist. And people then go, "Oh, okay." That doesn't always mean that they change their terminology, but at least it addresses it. And so if they do go to another massage therapist and they say that, then you kind of go, oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I was corrected. We're going to be the ones who have to take the name back.
Right.
Massage therapist. We can't just get tired of hearing it and go, whatever. We have to own it. Just like we have to own the terms massage therapist, massage, when you see a place that says exotic massage, you know what? Report it. Your term is being on that building, and if exotic massage isn't by licensed massage professionals who I don't know why they'd have the term exotic massage, but for any reason, that's an inappropriate connection to put together from something that is not massage therapy to something that is sexual. And to separate that and kind of make sure to report that so that in our society we can change that, that's going to be so much stronger. Mm-hmm. I know several years ago there was a TV show about a massage therapist who was a prostitute and was working in a spa that was notorious for that. And
right.
massage therapists really got up in arms and put letters out and all of that. Now, did it change the TV show going? No, it still went on. I don't know how many seasons it went on for, but I don't think very many. But the key concerns are that people are like, well, it didn't change anything. Actually, it may have. Just simply by putting it out there, you made your voice heard that massage therapy is not sexual. And that then connects with you in your own truth so that you can stay stronger even through the next conversation and through the next person that you're connecting with. Mm-hmm. There's go ahead.
I was just going to say that TV and movies, there's a treasure trove of ethical scenarios. I use them all the time when I teach ethics to my students. My favorite one is the movie Couples Retreat, if you've ever seen it. That's my favorite 2.5-minute clip. I give it to my students as an assignment, and I base, because we teach a unit of ethics and communication. And what I do is, I give them the list of ethical terms, and their job is, their homework is to watch that clip and to classify all the different ethical violations that are in that video. It's unbelievable how many are in that video.
I'm going to see if I can find a link to that on YouTube, and I'll put it in the description below so people can go and connect with it. But
I'll send it to you. I have it.
Oh, you have the link? Oh, perfect.
I have the YouTube link. Yeah.
Even better. It is really. It so demonstrates the provocative nature of communication, of the presentation, of what's actually being said and what's being perceived wrongly or rightly. All of that just really connects to, can you write out in your mind what could be done wrong and then engaging it in an appropriate way.
Right.
There's a second concern about sexuality that I had in massage school that really held with me. One of my instructors said, never have a sexual relationship with your partner in your office, in your treatment center, anywhere near your massage table, because you don't want your partner thinking of you in that way when you're at work. It can create a jealousy mentality. It can create a perception that you don't want in your family dynamics. And I kind of went, okay,
good point.
Not a problem, hadn't thought about it. But then when I started hearing about massage therapists who had been divorced and jealousies that were there, it really does have some strong truth to it, to connect not only for the spouse or the partner, but also for you. Because if you have engaged in sexual contact in that setting, then it's more feasible that you will engage in the memories of those things in that setting. And so it creates that professional boundary for the facility that you don't have to have a concern about that you're ever thinking about those things.
Right.
It reduces the sexual focus for you as a massage therapist, and that relationship that they were talking about, making sure that all relationships that you have in that facility are in the professional manner, once again.
Yeah, that's a good point, Nathan, because I actually talk to my students about this too. And we talk about the way you present yourself, how you dress, the music you play in the background. Kenny G just is not the most appropriate thing to play, or the smooth jazz station. regardless of whether or not the client likes it or not. I'd rather play Metallica than play that, but but it's also understanding that your family and your friends accept what you do and how you do it. Like, my husband has been very supportive of me being a therapist, and he knows that I've worked on male and female clients, and he's never had that concern. Although in the beginning, when I did start practicing, I did wear my wedding ring on my necklace at first, just to kind of let people know that I was married. And then I just got to a point, I've been married 25 years. At this point, it's like, yeah, okay, but, and he doesn't mind. But you do make a good point, though, that you do have to have those conversations with your significant others in your life to make them understand that, look, this is just my job. This is just what I do, and this isn't, this doesn't infringe upon that. As well as, it kind of goes back to the, like you're saying, the massage table is not a place for that. So, and even if you are, as we started talking about, working on your spouse, just, in terms of a therapeutic relationship, again, that shouldn't happen on that table. I have a private studio in my home, and no, that doesn't go on, in my house. So,
it's that piece that you
right.
build the healthy relationship with your spouse or your partner, but you also build the healthy relationship with your work.
Yes, it's true.
And the perception doesn't change because you're engaging in a healthy relationship. Now, I love how there's something written specifically in the middle of this policy, of this ethics piece. So yes, I refrain under no in all circumstances from participating in sexual relationship or sexual conduct with a client, whether consensual or otherwise. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
I found it so hard when I was a massage instructor, for students who would come in and they're like, well, but what if they're okay with it? That doesn't change the fact of the therapeutic relationship.
Nope.
And all of the rest of the pieces that kind of really engage. And truth be said, most of these were young people who just came out of high school, new to college, that kind of stuff, and hadn't had experiences and weren't married, and were like, well, but what if I find the man of my dreams and he happens to be coming in for a massage? One of my coworkers many, many years ago, she was the ethics instructor in the first school that I started teaching at. And she taught ethics before I did, and she taught ethics the quarter before I got the students. And so my first quarter, I was like, okay, so here's what we're doing, blah, 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 just kind of connecting and getting them organized. And one of the students said, Nathan, why would it be inappropriate for you to date your client? And first of all, I stopped and I was like, whoa, where are you getting this? Let's talk about it. And he shared the ethical story of the previous ethics instructor. And I confirmed it with her, and it still made my skin itch. She actually worked in an office that was adjacent to a truck stop.
Mm.
And she had a client who came in for a massage, and he came in and she was attracted to him. She said he was a handsome guy, and during the whole massage session, they were talking and engaging in just conversation, and just really he was enjoying the massage session, and she was enjoying just his conversation and who he was. At the end of the session, he got dressed, and she says, he came out, and she's like, well, I really think you're an interesting person. I would really enjoy going out with you, but if you pay for this session, then you're a client and I can't go out with you. So if you want to go out with me, you can't pay for the session, but if you don't, then just pay for the session.
That's kind of putting him on the spot either way, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. And so he didn't pay for the session, and they started going out, and they became a long-term relationship.
Oh.
Truth be said, go ahead, a year, he had cheated on her several times, and the relationship didn't last. That may or may not have had anything to do with the structure of how the relationship began. But the relationship, and this is what I told the student, I said, a therapeutic relationship doesn't start by them paying.
Mm-hmm.
A therapeutic relationship comes by them coming in and you focusing on a therapeutic purpose and creating a treatment plan for their session that day. That's when a therapeutic relationship begins. Now, the thing that I would say about this therapist's concern is that they didn't create a therapeutic relationship in their communication, in their lack of professionalism, in the on-the-spot place where they put this client, because really she was the aggressor in the relationship.
Right.
Without trying to be the aggressor, by trying to be passive about it, but it became a very aggressive form of, hey, this is how you don't pay for your massage.
Right. Yeah. That really, I mean, either way, I think that was just uncomfortable on many. I mean, even if it wasn't the client therapeutic relation starting off on the bad foot, it certainly was a personal relationship starting out on a bad foot too. Because I mean, basically giving that person an ultimatum: you're either going to be my client or you're going to be my date. It's like, geez, and don't I get a third option, which is, can I just escape and
I'm out.
Pass go and don't collect $200?
Exactly.
I mean, that doesn't seem. I mean, that kind of puts an aggression on all factors. So that kind of seemed doomed from the get-go.
Yeah. Well, and really, I really push when I talk about a sexual relationship. The worst cases are the ones that end in some sort of contact inappropriate of that.
Right.
But truth be said, that's not where they start. A sexual relationship starts with talking about the wrong thing in a treatment room, presenting yourself in a less professional way. That could be your dress code, that could be something. But simply by allowing inappropriate communication to go on, if you're literally taking an hour and only talking about the treatment session, you're wearing professional clothes, it is going to be very hard for a person to be inappropriate, because everything that you're talking about and working with and focused on is going to be the session, not about how the relationship is with their wife, or what's going on in their family, or what they did last night, or where they were out going, or what they were drinking, or who they're dating, or any of those challenges of communication that create a personal boundary instead of a professional boundary. It grays everything. And I know it's easy to say that and then say, okay, now you have to live by it, because you're working on a human. You still want to have a human connection, but without that human connection really maintaining professionalism, you're going to have someone who's going to try and strive down a wrong road.
Right. Well, there's one way. I get this question a lot from students. They ask me, well, what happens if a client wants to talk through their session? Is that allowed? Well, of course it's allowed, as long as they can relax. But the key is they can talk about whatever they want. It's how you respond is what makes a difference. So, and the thing is I tell them that it's a lot like being a bartender. And a lot of them will raise their hands and say, yeah, I've done some bartending before. People will sit at the bar and they will tell you your troubles over a beer. But the thing is, do they give you advice? Do they tell you what to do? No, a good bartender just monitors your tab and makes sure you don't drink too much and don't get behind the wheel of a car. And they don't give you any advice, but they make you feel like you've been taken care of. And I said, that's exactly what you need to do, is you are not to respond to if a client needs to get stuff off their chest because that's what's going to help them relax in the session, then by all means, talk away. But you can't respond to any of it And if it is suggestive language, if it is, talking about relationships, if it is talking about that thing, there's such a thing as going, oh, okay.
I call that the
Acknowledging
model.
Right. It's just, you're just acknowledging that they're talking, but you're saying nothing. And then they feel like they're being taken care of. And that's, not that we're trying to create a ruse, but you're just not trying to go down an avenue that is going to put you in an unprofessional situation, sexual or not. It just doesn't matter. You want to focus to be on the session. And sometimes if they try to ask you a question, just say, well, I'd rather not discuss it, or I'm kind of focusing on working on you right now. And, but you're welcome to talk and I'm willing to listen. But the key word is listen, not respond. So
I've had several people really kind of push an ethical dilemma that they don't know if it's a sexual piece or not. And it's the standardized statement of, would you like to go out for coffee? Because the term going out for coffee can mean different things to different people. And for a businessman, someone says, hey, I've got a great business idea. I'd like to talk to you about it. Would you like to go out for coffee?
Right.
Talk over coffee. Business model of communication. However, if you're interested in a person and you don't know if you want to go out on a date, or you kind of want to have a light first date, hey, you want to go out and have some coffee? Is also a euphemism for want to go out on a date. And so if you have a client who says, hey, would you like to go out for coffee? The first concept I think that needs to be addressed is, what is it that you would be talking with them about in a session over coffee? And why would it be a better scenario for you to be out of the treatment center that you're in, your spa, your facility, your office, and be in an open public area to discuss with them something else?
Yeah, well, then that kind of brings it back to your ethical code where it says, and I think where it said something about any other type of relationship or under any circumstance. Well, again, this is the conversation I have. I know social media is like a whole nother topic, but I say this to my students as well, which is, you really should not have any other relationship with your clients outside of what you do with them as a massage session, as a massage practitioner. So the long and short of it is, no, you really should be going for coffee, because what are you going to do? Sit there and talk about their muscles? You're not. That's what happens in a treatment session. That's what happens in a consult before you get them on the table. So things like, having social time, even though you could be or want to be friends with these people, unless you were friends beforehand, you don't want to go down that path. And because it just muddies the waters that much more. And then it opens all kinds of problems. Sexual in nature, it could be they won't pay, they show up late to their sessions. They blow you off, or there's so many other things that can happen. So opening that door, and also opening that personal side of yourself, is not necessarily a good thing either. Disclosing too much of yourself to your clients, you can be held hostage by your clients as well if you disclose too much information. So it's kind of a two-way street. So again, I think it just goes back to, it doesn't really matter if it's sexual or not. It's maintaining that professional boundary. Looking at it just like if you were your doctor or your lawyer, you don't do those things with those people. You maintain a professional relationship with them, and we should be no different.
Yep. I have a confession to make. I had a person who I hadn't seen for years, but he went to church with me when I was a kid. He came in, he was receiving massage as a professional, and he said, hey, why don't you come out, and we're playing hoops with a bunch of friends. And I'm like, sure, why not? And so I went and started playing basketball, and God forsake, of course, one of the guys on the court fell down and had a cramp in his leg. They're like, Nathan, come on over here, come on, he's got a cramp, help him. And I'm like, I totally have no problem doing that. I know how to work on cramps. I've worked on cramps my whole professional career. I've worked on athletes. I've worked sports. I've played that game. But I noticed that because I was there was that connection of that dual relationship already built, that they were like, oh, well, yeah, you're the massage therapist who can help us with these things because you're here, and the expectation is, and it's building that expectation of professionalism. Because yes, I didn't have a problem doing it, but when I got done, I kind of went, I wonder what would have happened if I wasn't there. He probably would have gotten up and stretched around and walked around and worked the cramp out eventually, and probably sat on the bench for a couple of, maybe a quarter. But did that change the perception of me? Did that add to my marketability to his friends? Did that change? There's so many dynamics that you can have, and you can always second guess things. But you know what? The key thing, maintain your professionalism in all settings.
Yep.
If you can do that and say, you know what, I'm doing the best that I can, and I'm following the laws, I'm following the rules, and I'm following my ethical guidelines, you're good.
Yeah.
If something happens and you're in an ethical dilemma and your gut's going, yeah, I don't like this, guess what? I hate to say it, but you're doing it right.
Right. Exactly.
If your gut wasn't telling you something's wrong, that's where you have to have a lot more concern. You've got to be aware of those points where you're going to have people who may push your limits. And by asking the right questions, you can find out if something's right and something's wrong. But your gut should be still a portion of what helps guide you to understand why something is right or something is wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't end with anything better. Let me just hit this one more time, and we're going to read this over one more time. Refrain under all circumstances from participating in a sexual relationship or sexual conduct with a client, whether consensual or otherwise, from the beginning of the client-therapist relationship and for a minimum of 6 months after the termination of the client-therapist relationship, unless an ongoing current sexual relationship exists prior to the date the therapeutic relationship begins. This is number 14. Thank you so much, Robin, for joining me. It's always a joy to hang out with you.
Oh, thank you, Nathan. I appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, and we'll see each other again someplace. I know that always happens. If nothing else, Washington, D.C., I'm hoping.
That's right. Yes, I will be at Washington, D.C. I'm actually teaching on Teachers Day. So for those teachers out there that are looking to learn something about body mechanics and how to teach your students body mechanics, I'm teaching a course on that. So
awesome. That's a great class. And so I'm very happy to hear that's something that you're doing. Because are you going to be working off the same curriculum that you had at the teachers or the school summit?
It's actually expanded a little bit, where we have 4 hours this time. So I'm going to delve a little bit more into some of the exercises that we do, as well as the educational theory behind teaching it this way. Because, well, I'm kind of involved in this master's degree thing, and so I've been reading a lot about educational theory these days. But there's really some logic behind trying to do some of these exercises that really help with body mechanics, and so I'm sharing that with fellow teachers. So I hope many of you will join me. Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, and I will make sure to put this out and have people, if they need to contact you, how would you like them to contact you, Robin?
So I can be reached at my office at CCBC.
Okay.
My email address there is randerson2. So it's randerson2@ccbcmd.edu.
So is that the hashtag 2 or just 2?
Just 2, just the number 2.
All right, perfect.
Yep. It was nice to meet you, Robin Anderson. Thank you, Nathan. The hour has flown by. We hope you've enjoyed this discussion with Ethics Outside the Box. As you've seen, Nathan uses many second-hand stories of ethical situations. If you'd like to share your story or you have any questions, feel free to contact him and Nathan at educatedtouch.com. If you'd like to register for next week's live webinar, go to shop.educatedtouch.com. Under live webinars, you will see all upcoming webinars. If you have just watched this video and would like continuing education for home study, you can go to shop.educatedtouch.com under the home study options with the date or episode number to receive your exam. If you would please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, we will keep you up to date on new videos. If you'd like to attend one of our live courses, you can find upcoming scheduled events at www.educatedtouch.com. Thank you for joining us today. Be well and have an ethical day.